Imagine the following. A guy who has everything material in this world, who built his whole life on money, goes, against his will, to a Buddhist monk who sees no value at all in everything he has built. Something interesting is bound to happen, and that's exactly what unfolds in this White Lotus scene. Of course, there's humor, there's mockery, but there's a twist that goes way beyond the joke and makes us reflect on some really deep things in life. And before I show you this scene, let me first briefly give you the whole context, because for you to understand the weight of what the monk says, you need to understand why this guy ended up there.
I couldn't ask for a more perfect family.
We had a perfect family. No privations, no suffering, no trauma.
Timothy Ratliff is a financial mogul, a guy who made a lot of money and lives a life of the highest standard. At the story's start, he goes with his family on a trip to Thailand. The official reason for the trip is that his daughter, who is all into spirituality and detachment, wants to meet and talk with Buddhist monks to write her college thesis. But that's nothing more than a lie, an excuse she made up so her family would agree to the trip, because her real intention was to get there and convince her parents to let her stay at the monastery for a whole year. Buddhist ideals. But since she already knew her parents well, she didn't want to say that right away because she knew they would reject it. But anyway, when they arrive at the luxury resort where they're going to stay, the whole family is already kind of unimpressed with the hotel's proposal. It's a detox place with talks, where very wealthy families go to get away from the world, to slow down. In fact, as soon as you arrive at the hotel, they ask you to hand over your electronic devices. It's a proposal for total disconnection. And when everyone in the family finds out about this, they all sigh, but okay, they even accept it. But Tim doesn't. He wants to stay connected to his work. He needs to be in control of things, and he refuses to hand over his phone. And ironically, that's exactly what ruins his trip, because he starts getting a series of calls saying that a bomb went off at his company that would destroy his business. Tim was involved in a money laundering and bribery scheme with an old partner. One of his employees reported everything to the press and FBI. The FBI has already raided the office, accessing emails, documents, accounts, and more. There's no turning back now. He's in trouble. He'll be arrested, exposed, and lose his fortune. The newspapers will report it the next day. But do you know what angers Tim most about all this? He had only made a measly $10 million with his stupid scheme that's going to ruin him for the rest of his life. And obviously, this terrible news ruins his vacation. And after this blow, the first thing he feels the need to do is hide it from his family. So he comes in saying that he's reconsidered and thinks it's better for everyone to do a phone detox now. Leave the electronics put away so they can enjoy the trip and have some peace. And great, everyone agrees. Happy family, everyone calm, nobody knows anything. Only Tim knows that this will be the last week of peace in his life. And to handle all this, he starts secretly taking the anti-anxiety meds from his wife's purse, which she takes in pretty high doses. And meanwhile, he starts probing how his family would react to the news. He keeps coming up with some lame talk about how it's possible to live a simpler life. But not even he believes that. He's clearly only doing this out of necessity.
If I get better, it'll last much longer, right?
His wife, who is always doped up from the absurd amount of medication she takes, is shallow to a cartoonish degree and absolutely refuses to accept this talk about living with less.
What if we lost everything?
We're not going to lose everything. No. And if we did, honestly, I don't know if I'd want to live.
It starts to dawn on Tim. He starts realizing that no one in his family would survive without the money. And now he sees himself as the one responsible for ruining everyone's life. And the pressure keeps building and building until it gets to a point where he starts thinking about killing himself. And his mind is so overwhelmed that this thought goes even further, reaching the sick point of considering taking his family with him. In his twisted logic, this was his way to protect them from suffering, from seeing him as the father who ruined everything, and from waking up without their usual comforts. It's desperation. From a guy who only knows how to solve problems with money, and this time, money can't fix it anymore. And while this whole storm is raging in his head, his wife, completely unaware of all this, discovers their daughter's real plan. She finds out that the thesis was just a lie, and what she really wanted was to live in a monastery. For Tim, given the situation, that's literally the least of his problems. But for his wife, this is a scandal, an absurdity, and she gets even more upset with her husband's blasé reaction. She wants him, as a father, to solve this problem, to apologize, to do something, to take a stand. At the very least, he should visit the monastery to talk to the monk and see if it's suitable for his daughter to spend a year. So he goes, setting the stage for this meeting. The materialistic billionaire, with his mind racing, doped up on anti-anxiety meds, with the FBI on his tail and even considering killing his own family, standing before the peace and love Buddhist monk.
You have questions for me?
Well, my daughter wants to join yours. Whatever this is.
He immediately makes it clear that he's not there for himself. After all, he doesn't believe in or respect these things. His spiritual level is close to zero. So for him, it makes no sense at all to sit there and listen to a guy who has never achieved anything talk. In his mind, this monk is a loser. A guy who likely ended up there due to lack of ambition or failure in life just sits, staring at the monk, unsure of what to say or ask. Until the monk quickly figures out what's going on and starts to speak.
Many young people come here from your country. I think it's because spiritually man has lost connection with nature, with the family, lost connection with the spirit. What is left? The self-identity, chasing money, pleasure, yeah?
Tim seems to zone out while the monk talks about all these spiritual ideas about identity, loss of connection, and all that stuff. But when the monk talks about the pursuit of money and pleasure, he finally seems to get the billionaire's attention.
Everyone runs from pain towards pleasure. But when they get there, they only find more pain. You cannot outrun pain.
You can clearly see that the monk touched the guy with these words. He managed to make him look at his own life and realize how this applies to his own life. That quick speech seems to have touched a part inside him that had been dormant for years. But even so, that's not enough. Tim is totally ruled by what is material, by what is tangible in life. And even though he had a brief moment of reconnection with the essence of life, he soon goes back to his traditional way of operating. His ego quickly takes control of the situation again. So, how does a wise man act? Instead of trying to better understand his daughter's schedule, he takes a quick look back to check that no one is watching and decides to ask the question that was bothering him at that moment.
What do you think happens when we die?
Pay close attention to the answer the monk is going to give and notice how Tim, just by the faces he makes, shows that he's completely distorting the message.
You're born. You're like a single drop of water. Flying up. Separated from the one giant consciousness. You get older. You descend back down. You die. You land back into the water. Become one with the ocean again. No more separated. No more suffering. One consciousness. Death is a happy return. Like coming home.
You can feel the relief that Tim feels when he hears those words. He walks away comfortable with the idea of death because he filtered that whole conversation for exactly what he wanted to hear. The suffering ends, death is a happy return, it's like coming home. That's what he took from the conversation. After all he wanted was something that would make him comfortable with the idea of death, so he could use it as a way to escape all his problems. The guy was literally capable of leaving that monastery and killing himself and his entire family, and he would still leave a letter implying that he was motivated by Buddhist ideas to do all that. After all, death is a happy return, isn't it? And as bizarre and exaggerated as it may seem, people do this all the time. They take philosophies, religions, ideologies, not with the intention of transforming themselves, but as a way to find justifications to do exactly what they already wanted to do. Take Stoicism, for example. I find it funny how this philosophy became trendy in the corporate universe. Motivational coaches and successful entrepreneurs have co-opted Stoicism so thoroughly that it has almost become synonymous with performance and productivity. And what happened is that a philosophy that, in short, was created to free the individual from attachment to the world, ended up being turned into fuel for the ego of those who want to conquer the world. These guys distorted an ideology that has existed for centuries to adapt it to their own interests. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus must be turning in their graves. And these distortions happen very often because people come to these philosophies and religions in a state of consciousness that is completely incompatible. And that's why they end up like Tim, who can't connect with what the monk is saying. It's exactly what I keep talking about regarding the 3 dimensions of consciousness. The vast majority of people are in the first dimension. They're the ones who follow the rules, go with the herd, and are led by life. They don't question anything, fulfilling their social role almost without any real awareness of the game they're playing. They're the sheep waiting for a wolf to lead them. Now, in the second dimension is where the predators live, the wolves who dominate the sheep. They're the ones who hold prominent positions in the game. That's where Tim prevails. They're the ones who made it, who achieved what the sheep desire most. But even so, they still can't see the illusory nature of the game they're playing. They think it's all there is, and that's why they live completely trapped there. And that's exactly why it's so common to see so much unhappiness in these people. Tim's wife, for example, is a reflection of that. She has everything everyone dreams of, a privileged life with the highest standard of comfort there is.
No one in the history of the world has lived better than we have, even the kings and queens.
Even so, she needs anxiety medication to cope with the very reality she values so much. And then the question remains, if her life is so perfect, why does she need medication to handle it? What might someone with everything still lack? And that's where the third dimension of consciousness comes in, a dimension that's outside of this game that people play so desperately. A rare state of consciousness connects us with life's essence, detaches us from the material world, and frees us from ego. The monk in this scene also represents this state. Never assume the answer to life is to be like him, become a monk, follow Buddhism, or live in a monastery, as none of that guarantees anything. Tim's daughter is proof of this. We might see her as different since she was born into all that, but rejected it. She wants to free herself, let go of her ego, and meditate in the monastery. But then she goes and does it. And after just one night living the way she wanted so much, she shows up the next day embarrassed and ends up confessing the truth to her parents. No, Mom, it's true. This is pathetic. I think I'm trying hard. I can't live like this. And what's interesting is that she probably believed everything she said. She really believed that Buddhism would free her from the meaningless life she was living, that Buddhism would take her away from the empty life she saw her parents living. But when it came time to actually live by that philosophy and give up all the comfort and privileges she had, she couldn't last more than one night. That happened because her search was driven more by ego and attachment than awareness. It was the ego wanting to escape her family, to prove itself different, to seek an alternative identity. And in the midst of this ego-driven desire, there was still a strong attachment to everything she claimed to reject so much. And what I like about this example is that it illustrates a truth very well. You will never actually be able to reach a higher dimension with the consciousness of a lower one. And just taking the opportunity here for those who got curious about this whole thing of dimensions of consciousness and the power of change and transformation it can have in our lives, there's a link to a video showing up here in the corner of the screen or in the description where I explain everything about this journey. Going back, the monk's speech helps us understand why this frustration exists. He makes it very clear that human beings are constantly seeking pleasures, luxuries, and comforts, believing that these pursuits will solve the pain caused by the emptiness they feel. But in practice, they're only postponing and even increasing this pain. And what's interesting is that the 3 characters from this family that we mentioned here, in different ways, illustrate this perfectly. Tim is the guy who built his whole life around money and reputation. And when those pillars are threatened, he simply preferred to make plans. He'd rather plan his and his family's deaths than live without them. His wife is the one who says she won't give up her comfort for anything, but at the same time, she's the one who needs medication to endure exactly the life she defends so much. And the daughter is the one who can't stand the pampered life she has, but at the same time, she's also not willing to go through the real discomfort of having to leave the life that torments her. And that's the great irony. Our identity ends up becoming a prison, and this goes far beyond the rich. No one is spared from this. The rich, the poor, the successful, the unsuccessful. They build this prison, lock themselves inside, and even throw away the key. We get so attached to who we think we are that any threat to this identity feels like a threat to our very existence. That's why the metaphor of the monk is so precise. When he says that when we're born, we're like a drop that's separated from the ocean, he's touching on the root of all problems, the idea that we are isolated beings. Because when you believe you're an isolated drop, small, finite, separated from the rest, you fall into despair. And then the scramble to escape that despair begins. You start thinking that money will solve it, that more power will fix it, that more pleasure, more control over things, more belonging will help. You constantly try to make up for that feeling of lack, that feeling that you're not enough on your own. But time shows that none of that solves it, because you're trying to solve a problem that isn't part of the game with more of the game. And that's when death, in the monk's view, becomes a happy return, because death symbolizes the end of this separation. It's the drop returning to the ocean. It's the end of the ego, the end of this identity that you carried with so much effort and in the end didn't serve you at all. And all this reflection leads me to think that the truth is that people lack spirituality nowadays. Many people think that by joining a religion or studying an Eastern philosophy, they are becoming spiritual people. But spirituality goes far beyond understanding religious and philosophical concepts. Spirituality means being able to step outside yourself to establish a connection with what goes beyond.
Queria aproveitar esse momento.
Chave Tres Dimensões, a series of 10 episodes that has impacted many people. In this video, I explain everything about the key, and in the other link, I direct you to the website where I explain everything about my exclusive content platform.